So these are some of the potential expected outcomes. So suppose for the individual cases and for the organizational cases differently, I'm defining for the individual cases like seeding of an innovation mindset by teaching the building blocks of successful human-centered design and more. And in case of organizations, like you have to break the silos inside the organizations and promote a cross collaboration of creation, because it's very easy to make a individual learn than to make a set of people learn. So that is the problem which we're seeing in organizations. In the individual cases, you can have a learning of a methodology to move ideas from simple insights to working prototypes, converting the prototypes into viable business model. These things happens in normally the incubation centers. But in case of organization, basically the transformation have some outcomes or potential expected outcomes, like they're seeing a culture thought process that small groups can come together easily in comparison to the large groups. In case of individuals, if you give a new appreciative for cross collaboration, co-creation, then actually it works different way. And in this slide, actually, what I have tried to make you understand that what is it X4. So X4 basically is a part of actually evolution of the design thinking, which is being made by like GD Litka and Team Ogilvy's book, which is written as a designing for growth. It put forwards a very unique spin. It is as good as design thinking, but somehow it is different way. Like they have framed in the terminology into four Ws, not five Ws. So there's no five whys. So four Ws. Those are basically like what is, like how to explore the current reality, what if, and envisioning the alternative futures, what was, that is basically getting users to help us make some tough choices, and what works. So like making it work in market and as a business. So these four W's basically the same thing as we did in design thinking, but these two person have made it in a different way, but outcome and results is same. So this is also part of design thinking, evolution of design thinking. And in terms of the customer experience transformations, which are basically three buckets for any design thinking activities or persons should understand, that it always have to have a purpose of it. So if no purpose is there, then you have to create purpose. You have to develop a value-led customer-focused vision. You have to have the design transformations like discovering the specific needs, pain points, unmet wants, and you have to have this enable transformations so that you can establish the roadmap and build the capabilities to realize the solution to design thinking for having better customer experience transformation. Next slide. So this is in parallel, the design thinking process follows the five broad iterative steps as I defined already, like empathize, define, taste, prototype, ideate. So this has been sourced from this website, www.mage.com. Next slide. It is again repetition of this, so I don't want to put more emphasis. Now, if you see the if you see the all these five pillars like empathy, define, ideate, prototype, test. So see how these things are creating a transformation levers. Like if you see the first two, empathy and define creates purpose. Then design thinking and ideate creates design transformations. And if you see this prototyping and testing creates to have a position to enable the transformation. So finally, the transformation levers leads to this innovation-led transformations with the more focus on productionizing and transformations. So based on this, actually, if you can see why five, so these five, if are worked well, then obviously you can have a transformation levers for creating an innovation-led transformations. So next slide. Now to quantify, the benefits of design thinking, when measured against the transformation for any particular industry or education institution or any sector of business, then we look into this Forrester's CX customer experience index score is very, very famous nowadays. So this actually what this Forrester CX index is, it tells us that 75% of the customer experience projects can achieve 2 times of rate of investment by just utilizing design thinking, and that a mature design thinking practice can achieve and return on investment in between 71% and 107% at organizational level. See how much impact it has in design thinking in the transformational changes related to customer experience. So this is basically called as Forrester CX index score. And how it works, basically it works on the effectiveness, easiness, emotions, retentions, enrichments, and advocacy. And finally, the customer loyalty. So based on that, the customer index score, it is related to find out which organization has achieved the best of its rate of investment using the design thinking mindsets. Next slide. Uh, Now, how can we live this service design thinking? It is also part of it. So service design thinking basically is important because the bad service always cost money. Great service always create value. And brand differentiation happens only with the best service designs, and cross-channel experience also happens. So if you see this Venn diagram, you can see the service design, customer experience, and user experience all sums up in between in one sphere. And that's the reason that service design plays a very important role, because it is part of the customer experience, it is a part of the user experience. So service design thinking also is very much important design thinking activity, and it cannot be left alone. That's why I put one slide related to service design thinking. Next slide. So how to institutionalize the design thinking as SAP experience is just one example I want to give. SAP, that is system application product. SAP, everyone knows, is the ERP product. So how they help this transforming the SAP first an experience using or helping transforming SAP. That objective was that SAP wants to infuse design thinking to become a next generation company in the mind of the customers and partners, because every industries mostly uh, the ERP system. So journey points are basically that all SAP comprise of 80,000 people globally have undergone design thinking. So they have made how they do it. They made all the 80,000 people globally working to undergo this design thinking training. And the entire customer facing organizations, including sales, pre-sales, consulting, value engineering, industry teams were trained, because it is a cross-functional activity. And in India, about over 500 people in the customer operations, including the entire sales, pre-sales team, are trained. 10 people are trained to become the design thinking champions. All large internal initiative of SAP, including our strategic discussion, account planning, GTM sessions, transformation initiative, product development, entrepreneurship, adopted design thinking. And the design thinking was consistently credited with influencing over USD 1 billion in revenue globally and USD 15 to 20 billion in India. So see how the SAP experiences that they have now, they're in a position to influence their credits, that their developments with over 1 billion US dollar in revenue globally, and in India around 50 to 20 billion US dollar, only just by subscribing and defining that how we can use the design thinking activity and institutionalizing in the organization for better understanding of the customer experiences. Next slide. So this is a summary, like first-hand experience of playing a role in transformation is a specialty chemicals major. If I say, because I'm also from a chemicals group or chemical organization, so the objective was basically how to help chemicals major diffuse design thinking operations. For this, they have simple training session, like they have, here also you can see that they have also used their all the interdepartmental experiences like IT and all to have a better understanding of design thinking through trainings and inclusion of the design thinking champions. So these are an example, but for this, like more trainings are followed, and organization has gone to establish a concrete ecosystem. So through this training and advancement with the global champions, they have very well adopted the design thinking activity and process inside the organizations. Is the second summary example for a petrochemicals or any chemical higher specialty chemicals major.